Hello again and welcome back. So I wanted to make at least one more video this week because I'm off from work, but I'm going to visit my parents probably tomorrow. It's about a 4-hour drive and I'm going to be there for the weekend, so I think this is going to be the last day I have time to do something. So if you remember, in a previous video I made what I know as a Ramses bracelet. I'll put a picture right here. Not sure if that's actually what it's called, but if you go on YouTube and type that in, there's a bunch of people making it. It's called that. So I wanted to make another one, but I wanted to make it a little bit smaller because the size I made it isn't really everyone's cup of tea. And I'm making some things to go into a showcase at the store I work. So I wanted to make something that was a little bit closer to what, most people would be interested in. So I started making it yesterday. I made one half. I'm going to make the other half today and kind of explain how I do it, the measurements, so that, if anybody watching this wants to try it, you don't have to go through the same trial and error process that I did, because it took me quite a while to figure out the measurements, how big to make the jump rings, all that fun stuff. So I'm going to go through the process and take you along with me. If you have any questions, feel free to post it in the comments. Or if you have any tips or pointers to give me, if I'm not doing something right, let me know. Okay, so now for the math. So we have 1.5 millimeter wire, right? So 1.5, you're going to multiply that times 2.5. That is what I found as the recommended width of the mandrel after hours of searching on YouTube. So I tried that, and it was still a little bit too tight. So what I actually like to do is I like to add another 1/4 millimeter, and that takes me up to 4. So for our jump rings, we're going to be using a 4 millimeter mandrel. Lost a little bit of footage, so I have to do a quick voiceover. When you're making your coils, you have to do 1/2 of the bracelet clockwise, the other half counterclockwise. So when you're spinning, I've already done the clockwise side, so this one I'm spinning counterclockwise. If you don't do this, they won't mirror each other. Alright, so the way that you cut the links, this I'm doing left-handed because it's easier for me to visualize it. Basically, you take the end, you line it up just about like that, right? And then you go 1, 2, okay? And then you snip just like that, so that you have a piece that looks like this. It's probably a little bit too much material, but I kind of like having the excess in case I mess up. So put that back down, and we go again, 1, 2, snip, right? I'm going to go ahead and cut all these, and then I'll show you how to start weaving the link. Okay, now that you have everything cut, time to start weaving it. So, there's 2 different steps to doing it. So what I like to do first, I like to do the part that kind of, secures itself first. So basically what you do, you take this one, you feed it in through the middle, and then you got to bring it up through this one. Keep going. So you want it to lock itself in place like this. Okay? So remember, through the middle one, out and around. You only want to be going through the middle one. Next, I give this a little squeeze, just to bring it closer together. Then, you take this, and you wrap that around both of them. And you want to make sure this other side goes through too. So you might have to give this a little squeeze so that you can get it through here. Okay, now once it's through, you might just have to give that another little quick thing just to open that up again. Then you just do the same thing you just did again. So you put this one through just the middle one, bring it up and around, trying to get to focus, just like that. And then you just repeat. Do this until you have, I'm making an 8.5-inch bracelet, so I'm making 8 inches of chain, and then the clasp will take up the extra space. And if we sell it, then we can shorten it. It's always easier to shorten than it is to add. You can't really add to this because there's so much finishing that goes into the end. Cool. Alright, so now we have the 2 halves made. Next step is we have to go through and solder each point where they intersect like that on both sides, on both bracelets. Take your time with this step because it's really easy for the solder to flow where you don't want it to flow, and it's really difficult to fix it. So what I tend to do is I tend to just heat up the bracelet softly just so that I can get a sizzle from the flux, and then I'll just flux the parts that I want the solder to flow, and that helps stop the solder from flowing into the areas that I don't want it to go. So I'll heat it up, a little bit of a sizzle with the flux, keeps it where I want it, and we'll do that straight down the line on both sides. your next step is to go through and snip off some of the excess. Now you want to use this as kind of like your guide. So you want to line up your snips with the second in, if that makes sense. You see where I'm cutting? So just use this as your guide. And you're going to want to do that to every side of this. There's 4 sides, so you're going to go down each and every one and just snip just like that, so that you have something that looks a little bit like this. Right, so your next step here is to twist the bracelets flat. The ends where you just snipped can be a little sharp, so if you have like a pair of leather gloves or something that you want to use, you can. It doesn't take that long, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I had another problem with my audio here, which is why I'm doing another voiceover, but as you can see, I'm just twisting it so that I can get it to lay as flat as possible. You're going to want to do this again to both sides, or both bracelets, and you'll see in a minute how they're going to line up with each other. Alright, so you can see that the 2 ends are flat, and you put them next to each other, you can see how they're going to eventually lay. So this is why you want to mirror them, otherwise they won't look like this. If you do them both the same, they're not going to line up in this way. So that's why you do one clockwise and one counterclockwise. Alright. So I got it all set up. I'm using a bit of sprue wax. Shellac would be ideal, but I don't have any, so I'm using what I have. Alright, so now I'm just going to burn off the excess of the wax. I steamed off as much as I could. If you used shellac, then I think you have to use acetone. But since I use wax, I'm just going to burn it off and then put it into the pickle. Okay, so sanded down both sides of both. Now, this part takes the longest. This part requires patience. But it's time to solder them together like this. So far, I haven't found a great way to line them up and keep them lined up and just go down the line, so I tend to do 1 or 2 at a time, because when I don't, it always ends up slightly misaligned and it just bothers me. So, it's gonna go down the line, solder, I'll show you where. I'm gonna connect right in here. on each one. Alright, so you want it just like that. And down the whole way, and then the other side too. This step takes a while, be patient. Okay, so you should have something that's starting to look a little bit like this. I tried a couple different ways to just kind of pin them all in place and just do multiples in a row, but it kept falling out of alignment. I don't want to risk it being uneven at any spot, so I'm taking it slow, and I'm not boring you with every single solder. I'm just going to show you some progress shots. Alright, so we got all the length soldered on one side. Now it's time to do the other side. The other side should be easier because everything's held in place now. You may have to go through and check. See, I have one right here. It's not quite even, which isn't really a big deal because what I can do, I can just grab it with the pliers, make an adjustment, and now it's good. So I have a couple of those spots to go through and just kind of align. Then I can just go straight down the line on this side. The first side's the hardest because it's like every little move you make, it shifts out of place. I've seen people tie it together with like stainless steel wire, and that looks like it works pretty well. I tried it, and I must have been doing something wrong because everything I did was just awful. The wire kept shifting. I couldn't get it to stay where I put it. So this is the way that I do it. It probably takes a little bit longer than the other guys that you'll see do it on YouTube, but this is the only way I found that I get a nice even pattern. So I'm going to go down the line, solder all of these, and then I'll come back when that's all done. Okay, into the pickle. Hot, 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 hot. Don't you fall. Alright. Okay, so everything is soldered. Now what you might have to do, which is what I'm going to have to do, is I'm going to take it over to my anvil. I'm going to have to just tap it straight a little bit. And then I'm going to pull it through the mill a couple of times just to try to even everything out before I start sanding and putting in the final shape. So I'm going to go hammer a little bit, and then I'll come back. If I have to pull it through the mill, I'll show you that. But now really it's time to sand again. We're going to sand down the surface on both sides. Then all that's left is to attach a clasp with some polishing in between. I'm probably going to tumble this. But really, we're really close to being done. So I'm going to go hammer, and then I'm going to start sanding. Alright, so I'm through the first stage of polishing. This is a chemical called, the brand name's Jack. So what it does is it blackens the silver. I like this a lot better than liver of sulfur because it works a lot faster and doesn't smell like eggs, but you can use this or liver of sulfur. You just have to wait a little bit longer with liver of sulfur and it'll smell like rotten eggs. The reason I'm doing this is I want the inside to stay dark and I want the outside to be shiny so it has a contrast. This is the final piece. I did notice while I was polishing there's a couple of little spots that I gotta touch up, like right here. I don't know if you can see it. There's a little crack where the solder broke at some point. That'll be easy to fill. I'm just gonna put some easy solder on there, fill it, and then just redo the finish. But I am very pleased with this. I didn't talk about the tabs. Let me show you. I got this tool on Etsy. It was 200 bucks. Worth every penny. What you'd basically do, you take a sheet, you put it in, and take this die, the size you want, and you hammer it through, and it cuts out tabs. So I don't have to buy tabs anymore. And the ones that it, punches out are a whole heck of a lot better. And I can say that more of this bracelet was handmade. The only thing that I didn't make on this bracelet is the clasp, because I'm pretty trash at making clasps. I've tried a few box clasps, and I think I need to take a class on it before I try it again, because I'm just not good at it. The ones I've made work, but they don't look great. So I decided to use a lobster clasp for this one, and just hooks up just like that. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you're watching this in hopes of trying to make one of these yourself, feel free to reach out with any questions. There's a couple of things that I didn't do a great job filming, which was, the cleaning up. But you'll see the areas in which you have to kind of touch up and sand down and make feel better. There's a lot of sanding that I didn't cover, and there's still a little bit that I might do to this. Some of these edges here are a little sharp. I might go in there with like a little tool and just kind of round them out a little bit when I have some more time, but for all intents and purposes, it's done. So like I said, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like, maybe consider subscribing. I'll see you next time.